Despite what you see on TV, the typical cop's life can best be described as unending hours of mind-numbing drudgery. Gunfights and car chases are few and far between. They generate so much extra paperwork, and second-guessing by everyone not involved, that no sane cop welcomes such breaks in the general tedium of police work. And no honest cop ever gets rich. At least a Monday cop gets to retire after 20 to 40 years. I've been on the job for more than 200 years. Ever since the first days of the Fables and Exile Compact and General Amnesty. I've never been in a gunfight, or fired a gun for that matter. I've never been in a car chase, much less learned to drive. And even the number of times I've had to chase a suspect on foot can be counted on one hand. All in all, I can't say I've had what could be described as an exciting career, or even a very interesting one. But once in a great while, small rewards do come along. Anyone who's ever fancied himself a detective, openly or secretly, longs for the day he can do the famous parlor room scene.
What the hell is that?
It's the moment where I get to reveal who did what, how they did it, and most important, how I figured it all out.
But we all have to go to a parlor first.
No, Flycatcher. The actual setting doesn't matter. This will do fine.
Then get on with it, Mr. Wolf. Tell your story. I can't tolerate the suspense.
When the Lord Mayor of Fabletown commands, I can only obey. My suspicions about the true nature of this case were raised the very moment I first learned of it. We're on the Upper West Side, far away from Rose Red's apartment down in the village. Jack had to take a cab up here in order to report the so-called crime. Jack's in pretty good shape. A simple run to my office from a cab parked outside shouldn't have winded him. But he arrived frantic and out of breath.
A terrible thing happened.
Why? Because he needed to sell me on the fiction that he just discovered a horrible crime and rushed right over to report it. And being Jack, he overdid it.
I told you to be subtle, jackass.
But...
You two stay out in the hall. So, tipped off in advance not to take anything at face value, I took a look at Rose Red's apartment. Within seconds, it was obvious that it was a staged crime scene, and staged badly at that. Blood was spilled and spattered everywhere, all over every surface of Rose's living room. No one could have gone in and out of there after the violence without leaving plenty of footprints. And yet Jack said he'd searched the place looking for Rose.
Check the bedroom to see if she's in there.
How did you check? She's not here. Why couldn't it be I was just careful to skip and hop over the blood splatters like you did to preserve the evidence?
Oh sure, that makes perfect sense.
Not a chance, Jack. No one encountering a scene like that worries about preserving evidence while his lady love may still be in the back room bleeding her life away. But that was far from your only amateur mistake. The next time you two try to stage a crime scene, you should actually knock things over, rather than carefully place them in positions you want them to end up in. The pole lamp was knocked over, but its light bulbs were still intact. Rose Red's favorite handmade ceramic ashtray was supposedly knocked to the floor, without so much as chipping it. Rose must have wanted to preserve her radio set, because it miraculously avoided getting spattered, even though blood was liberally splashed to each side of it. She wanted to save the best of her music collection as well. Compact discs spread out all over the floor make for good set decoration when one wants to suggest that a violent struggle has taken place. But she was only willing to sacrifice the CDs she didn't like so much, the ones in the back, to scatter on the floor. The CDs she played the most, the ones in the front, were untouched.
See, I told you we should have used some of your good CDs.
Shut up.
You made it pretty obvious that one or both of you expected to make future use of the stereo and such. But Rose wouldn't have considered those things while fighting for her life. You didn't care about your old secondhand toaster, so you used it to add to the picture of chaotic mess. But untidy as it was, your kitchen was untouched by the fictional struggle. So how did the toaster make it from your kitchen to the middle of your living room floor?
Okay, Wolf, enough already with the stereo sets and toasters. You've impressed us all with how easily you snuffed out the truth. But what I want to know is this. If you knew from the beginning that Rose was alive, why did you go on pretending to investigate?
Hold on, Tiger. Pull your claws back in.
How could you let me go for days, weeks, thinking my sister was dead when all along you knew she wasn't?
Pay attention. I only know for certain that your sister participated in staging the crime scene. I didn't know she wasn't dead. In fact, I had pretty compelling evidence that she was.
But you said...
There was more blood at the scene than any one person could lose and still be alive. And I knew it all belonged to Rose Red. Discovering that the crime scene was staged was a far cry from solving the entire mystery. There were too many possibilities to fit the available evidence. Rose could have planned it to make her suicide look like a murder. Or she could have participated in the scam to fake her death, not realizing that her partner in crime decided to make it a real murder scene. But it wasn't either of those, of course. The copious amounts of blood were the one part of their plan where Jack and Rose had thoroughly outsmarted me. For a while. Snow, you were the one who gave me the final clue. You helped me fit the last nagging pieces into place.
How?
Earlier this evening while we were dancing at the gala. Let's eat.
Too late. The good food is already gone.
You said something about locking the food away to keep the party guests from getting to it.
But we can raid the kitchen. The caterers always keep the good stuff locked away in the back.
That's how they did it. The average person can give up a pint of blood every 6 weeks without suffering any ill effects. They had to have had this idiot scheme planned for some time, because it took a while for Rose to collect the 5 or 6 pints of her own blood needed to convince us that she was dead. They stored her blood in her freezer so it would still be fresh when they needed it. But they always had so many people over. They needed some way to keep their guests from discovering the blood packets. Which is why they needed to keep her freezer compartment locked up. Which explains why I found a padlock in their utility drawer that fit the matching holes drilled into the freezer door.
That may be all well and good, but it still doesn't get you off the hook for keeping me in the dark.
I had to, as long as you were one of the suspects.
Suspect? How could anyone be a suspect in a murder that never took place?
Not even Rose Red would fake her own death without good reason. From day one of the investigation, I wasn't looking for her killer. I was looking for the person she was so afraid of, who made her go to all of this effort. Until I determined that, I couldn't risk telling any of you that she was still alive.
So, who was she so afraid of?
Bluebeard.
Why him?
Rose, want to answer that one for us? Because of this. Remember this, Snow? It's the marriage contract your sister signed last year, in return for a considerable amount of money. Here, in a nutshell, is what happened, and why. Most of this I can't prove, but it's all backed up by at least some evidence. Jack had another one of his all-too-numerous get-rich-quick schemes. It was an idea for one of those .com startups, if you can believe it. Trust Jack to try to jump on a bandwagon long after it's passed by. Startups like that take money. And typically Jack turns to his girlfriend to get it.
It's a sure thing, Honey Bear. And when I get rich, I can pay you back, and you can pay him back.
I don't know, Jack.
In order to raise the money Jack needed, Rose and Jack faked a messy public breakup, after which she agreed to marry Bluebeard, who'd been after her for some time. But she had some conditions. She wanted a lot of upfront dowry money, and the engagement had to be kept secret for exactly 1 year. That gave Jack enough time to make his fortune, and then Rose would pay Bluebeard back, and reluctantly break off their secret engagement. Unfortunately, Jack lost all that money, down the same black hole where everyone else lost their .com investments. So, as the year began to run out, knowing full well that a man like Bluebeard wouldn't simply forgive the debt, or the unethical way they extracted the money from him, Jack and Rose cooked up their scheme to get her out of her impending nuptials.
Faking your death? Are you kidding me, Rose? How long did you imagine that would work?
We needed a way to buy more time, just until we figured out another way to...
To land yourself in much more trouble than you were in originally?
Neither Rose nor Jack earned renown for their intelligence. Working together, they couldn't help but reach new lows of imbecility.
Oh yeah, peasant scum! If I'm so dumb and you're so smart, how is it I now have the titles and land you used to own?
Why do you think they call it dumb luck, Prince Knuckle Dragger?
Enough of this! Stop it! Both of you! All of you! By God, I'll have order now, or I'll have some heads on the chopping block! Mr. Wolf, is there anything else you've yet to reveal?
No, I've pretty much told all of it.
Then, what are we to do now?
Who knows? I've done my job by figuring everything out. It's up to you and Snow to work out what to do about it. But I have some suggestions, if you'd care to hear about them, in private.
I'm the injured party here. I've been cheated out of my money and bride. I'll have satisfaction from these two. His blood on my blade and her hand in marriage, as she is contracted to do.
And I have some money coming too. You've yet to pay me for the glorious millions I've earned for the raffle of my title and estates.
We'll settle all of that later. For now, it's late. Everyone go home and stay there. The mayor, the sheriff, and I will meet to work things out, and summon you as you're needed, so don't anyone wander off.
The next day.
Bigby, will you please stop snooping and sit down?
Sorry, Snow, but I've never seen your apartment before. You've done well for yourself. It's nice. And big, too. My entire apartment could fit inside your bathroom.
I've worked hard for what I've earned. This place is one of the few benefits of running the entire goddamn Fable community. Now please sit down so we can finish this up.
What's left to decide? You've worked it all out so that no one ends up happy.
But at least the misery's spread out as much as possible.
And Kingcole will go along with this?
The mayor's job is to glad hand and set general policy. It's my job to work out the dirty details. He'll go along with what I decide.
No one's gonna be very happy with you after today.
Who fucking who? I'll try to live with the loss.
When did you start cussing so much?
Now let's get to it. Bring them to me in this order at these places, and I'll handle the actual bloodletting. Don't you dare light that until you leave.
So here we are, my sweet, back at the same table, in the same place where we originally kicked off our plan that made me rich again. Full circle, you might say. Do you have my money?
Here you go. Don't spend it all in one place, darling.
Where's the rest?
That's all of it. Less the pre-agreed fees and expenses, of course.
What sort of unethical nonsense is this? The raffle brought in millions, and yet there's barely $30,000 here.
Less. 20,000 and some change. You should have read our agreement more closely before signing it. It allowed me to take out all reasonable expenses before you get your share, and I am the sole arbiter of what constitutes as a reasonable expense. The money we raised is needed to pay off Bluebeard and the cost of the investigation. You're lucky I gave you the leftovers.
But none of that is my responsibility.
Too bad. You should never have slept with my sister. Now, if I were you, I'd use what's left to buy your title back from Jack. I bet he can be bought cheap. And you'd never make it as a poor commoner. Bye, love. You'll pick up the check. Thank you, Lord Bluebeard, for coming by so promptly.
Yes, well, your pet wolf didn't give me the impression I had any choice in the matter.
This is America, where we all have freedom of choice. For example, this case contains all of the money you originally gave to my sister as her dowry, in cash. If you choose to accept it as your only repayment for all of the wrongs you've suffered, then everything can end nicely.
There is still the matter of the wedding.
That's off.
But I have a contract!
Yes, a contract you broke. You promised, as one of the conditions of your agreement with my sister, to keep the engagement a secret for 1 year, specifically until the night of the Remembrance Day celebration.
So?
So, you told Bigby and me about it several days before the celebration.
Only when we all thought she'd been murdered. Only in response to your questions in an official investigation.
So, you broke the conditions of the contract, making it null and void. You're lucky enough that we're willing to reimburse the money you've lost. We don't have to.
I won't stand for this!
Then I have no choice but to take back the money and reinstate the charges against you for the attempted murder of Jack while he was in custody.
Unfortunately, that means your head goes the way of so many of your past wives' heads.
Choppy choppy. So sloppy.
Here's the deal, kids. You both get to keep your heads and stay out of jail. But you're on probation for a year, and you each owe 200 hours of community service and $10,000 in fines.
We don't have that kind of money.
It might as well be $1 million each.
You'll have it by the end of the day. My sources tell me ex-Prince Charming is willing to pay at least that much to get his lands and title back.
So that's it. No one ends up with anything.
You end up with your freedom, which is more than either of you deserves. And you keep that much only as long as you behave.
And we all managed to live happily ever after all. More or less.
Less, rather than more, I'm afraid. No one's happy, but at least maybe we've kept them from killing each other.
That's good enough for me.
This was one long, exhausting day. I'm officially beat.
But you handled yourself well. After seeing you work today, I'm glad we're on the same side.
No, all I did was throw my weight around. You're the one that saved the day. You figured everything out. You're really not a half-bad detective.
Damning me with faint praise?
Something like that. Only...
Yes?
There's still one thing I don't understand. Why did you need me to be your date at the Remembrance Day celebration?
I explained that at the time.
No, you didn't. You said it was necessary to help you solve the case, but you never explained why. How did that help you? Why was it necessary at all?
Well, I think the reason should be obvious.
Then I must just be a dim bulb tonight. I need the obvious interpreted for me.
I wanted you to go to the damn dance with me. As my date.
Seriously? You were too shy or afraid to ask me to go to the gala with you, so you pretended it was business related?
Yeah, that's about it.
That's pathetic.
Really? I was hoping for something more along the lines of oddly, disarmingly charming.
Well, it wasn't. Don't do it again. We're colleagues and nothing more.
Fine.
Seriously, never again. Back off, Bigby.
Okay, lady, I got the message. Loud and clear.